NASCAR Cup Series race. Here are your hosts, Kevin Bedstone, NASCARSky, and Jeff Davis.
Welcome back, race fans, to another episode of Nash the Gas podcast. We're here to talk about all things Homestead-Miami and everything about Martinsville coming up, which I'm super excited. Martinsville was my favorite track. Joining us shortly is Jeff, but first I got to ask Kevin, who mashed the gas the hardest this week.
Well, Sky, we got to give it up. Old Hendrick Motorsports coming out of the gate strong, of course. Kyle Larson leads 19 laps, gets around his teammate Alex Bowman, who led 43 laps there. I know Bowman's kicking himself for driving it up into the fence there. That's just how good Kyle Larson is on these long runs, Jeff. HMS showing some power this weekend.
Hendrick Motorsports always brings really good power to Miami, and I know they're going to bring it next week, which we'll dive into a little bit later. But, man, what a bummer for Ryan Blaney, being able to lead 124 laps and have another engine blow. I mean, I just feel sorry for the guy. I mean, he's kicking ass and he's driving well, but his luck is just not there. But, as far as Alex Bowman, you're right, probably kicking himself a little bit for hitting the wall, but Kyle Larson takes her down. Mr. H has got to be pretty happy. Jeff Gordon's got to be pretty happy. But I've been reading some stuff about Gordon. He's still not 100% satisfied. He thinks his team can do better. And I think we'll probably see that next week as well. What do you guys think?
I'm sure that they're going to be a definitely contender next week. All of them, all four of the drivers. They did really, really good this weekend. I mean, I was really surprised by Bowman. I'm glad, though, in a good way. I mean, I like to see him do good. I like to see the 48 contending for wins. But, I mean, when Kyle Larson's one of the best to do it, it's hard when he's the one behind you. It's about as equivalent to, like, maybe Kyle Busch, being behind you. It'd be pretty nerve-wracking. So, good job to him. And I'm definitely excited for next weekend. I mean, Martinsville is just such a good track. So, I'm sure Hendrick will show up with speed. Hopefully, Penske can figure it out. This whole two blown engines thing for Ryan Blaney is definitely interesting. I can't think Penske doesn't blow engines very often. So it's definitely interesting for me. I mean, I'm just confused by the whole thing. I don't know if it's a Ryan Blaney thing. I don't know if it's a Penske thing. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's interesting and concerning all at the same time this early in the season. I'm sure everyone in the Ford camp is keeping a close eye on that teardown. But why the 12 car? Is it his shifting? Is it the driver related, or is it just the motors that these guys, are running? But guys like Logano and Hendrick, and I'm sure everyone in the Ford camp are, kind of keeping a close eye on it, even the guys over at RFK. So tough day, though, for Blaney. Like you said, Jeff, leading 124 laps, goes out up in smoke once again. We saw it in Phoenix. Now we're seeing it in Homestead. Obviously headed to a place where RPM isn't too much of a concern here in Martinsville. But those guys are going to need to get this thing figured out, definitely in a hurry.
Yeah, they definitely are, because I know Hendrick's going to be super, super solid next week. I mean, last year they ran P1, 2, and 3, one of the coolest finishes I'd ever seen. I think that was one of the times we actually gave Hendrick Motorsports the Mash the Gas award instead of to a single driver, because the entire team just kicked ass. I mean, it was an awesome race. And I do think next week's one of the races that they might want to look at maybe eventually doing the dual compounds again. Let's do a soft tire and then a harder tire between the two, because next week we're going to a track that's pretty damn flat. I mean, we got zero banking on the straightaways and only 12% banking in the turns, and it's only half a mile long. So we're going to be trading some paint next week. So I'm really excited to see that.
Well, and real quick on Martinsville before we go too deep into it, NASCAR, we're not doing an option tire per se this weekend. We'll have one standard set of Goodyear tires, but the left sides are going to be those that we ran very similar to North Wilkesboro last year. So we are bringing a softer tire compound to Martinsville. I'm really curious to see how that's going to impact, the long run speed. We know Martinsville, you got to save your brakes, save your stuff. But that tire, I think, is going to create for some racing that we haven't seen yet as they continue to develop on the short track package. But, look, all in all, pretty good weekend for Kyle Larson. Almost had the three-way sweep. Good day for Hendrick Motorsports and HendrickCars.com, getting a win in the NHRA series as well for Pro Stock. So, and Kyle Larson was so close, guys, to getting the weekend sweep.
Yeah, he definitely was. I didn't get to catch the Xfinity. I mean, I seen it after, but it's unfortunate for him, especially with winning Cup. I mean, it would have been nice to get that under your belt, but I mean, still 2 out of the 3 is really, really good. But I gotta bring up, pit road has been atrocious this last few weeks. I don't know what is going on. It's almost like we're so focused on the driving aspect, we're letting all the other little pieces slip, and it's starting to really show. I mean, Penske the last 2 weeks doing bad on pit road. They're not a team that does bad. And the drivers alone, I brought it up before, but Hamlin gets a speeding penalty all the time. Like, it is surprising me just how much pit road is getting these drivers this year.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of mistakes being made, and some of the guys are even being changed out a little bit. But hey, at least we didn't see Kyle Larson plow into the sand barrels or the water barrels right at the beginning of pit road like he did in Miami back in 23. One of the most interesting things I'd ever saw on pit road, and of all people, Kyle Larson actually mashed right into those suckers. So luckily that didn't happen. But one thing I think Sky called out earlier last week, we were talking about the guys with the last name that ended in B, and I was sitting there looking at it around lap 20, 25, right in there. And you had Ryan Blaney, Bowman, Barry, Briscoe, Gregson, and then William Byron. So 5 of the top 6 guys with the last name with the letter B. So, Sky, you did call that one out correct.
Well, and Bowman almost added to that list had he have just kept it straight. I mean, that was a good battle there at the end. I think it's hard to say. I think Larson had good enough stuff. If those guys got side by side, nice and clean, I think the 5 still had a little bit of the advantage, but, Bowman was not able to carry on the B streak. I'm sure he's going to want to look out for some redemption going into Martinsville. But, all in all, shout out to the 48 team. Those guys got a lot of gripe last year about, they won Chicago and they just weren't really running well for HMS. Jeff, you and I were kind of wondering, is he going to return to Hendrick? And I think that Alex Bowman, the showman, is here to, show that he can run up front. He's outpacing Chase Elliott. He's showing up with fast race cars, so we're still we know that Kyle Larson's kind of the flagship carrier for HMS, but that 48 car has definitely been showing some strength. And, you mentioned Josh Berry as well. Tough deal. Going back to Sky's point about pit road, gets turned around. I think the 22 of Joey Logano got turned around when they were 4 wide coming off of pit road. So just a lot of mayhem down there.
Yeah, the 99 took a spin there as well. So it was pretty interesting. But, you look at the point standings, and Hendrick's got to be pretty stoked out right now. I mean, 3 of their drivers are in the top 3, P1, 2, and 3, between Byron, then Larson, then Bowman. And then Chase Elliott, I know he seems to be struggling a little bit as far as what we would say, but he's still 6th in standings. So Mr. H, again, he's got to be pretty happy that all 4 of his drivers are in the top 6, because that's very hard to do.
It is. And Chase Elliott's someone that I think is going to do good next weekend. And, especially being with Hendrick, obviously. But Chase is good in Martinsville. And I think he's due for a good race or a win at minimum for sure. But something I really liked about Homestead was all the different strategies going on. And I really, that you had the 5 and the 11 split the stage in half, which really, I mean, clearly that benefited them so good. I mean, they were up there fighting. But I liked Carson Hocevar's move. I can't remember exactly why he had to do it, but when he he saved his tire, stayed out for the lead, ended up in a better position than he was in before. I mean, that was really good strategy, really good on his part. That's just some of my favorite things about racing, just all the strategy going on.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely when you have a good tire compound, you don't have to worry about blowing right fronts. We saw that so much last year with these Goodyear tires. I think these drivers have a little more confidence in these tires. So we can go out there, we can race hard, rip the boards as they do at Homestead. I mean, how many times did Kyle Larson get into that wall? I mean, there was nothing left of that right rear quarter panel by the end of that race. I mean, you have to use up every inch of that racetrack, just like we're going to see in a couple of weeks at Darlington, Jeff.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I mean, you're right. He loves riding that wall, kind of like Tyler Reddick loves riding that wall just as close as can be. But what's weird, I thought about, as far as Hendrick Motorsports, Chase Elliott's only led 2 laps in the first 6 races, whereas William Byron's led 111, Kyle Larson's led 92, and Alex Bowman's led 62 laps. So to see Chase Elliott, I mean, I think it's because he's racking up those stage points, and that's why he's so far up in the standings right now. So he does need to get a win, but it's kind of interesting to see Chase Elliott, at the bottom of the Hendrick camp right now.
Yeah, he hasn't been the same the last few years. It's unfortunate to see because I really like Chase Elliott and I like to see him do good. I mean, I like to see him take more of the most popular driver initiative and branch out more. But I mean, he's doing a good job in recent years, but I definitely think that he can do better. And I think he just got to get, what's the word, confidence back. I feel like he got the wind knocked out of him and it's just taken him a few steps to catch his breath.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. I mean, since we went into this next gen car, the stats just aren't there for him. I mean, he won the championship in 2020 in the old car. He won road courses in the old car. Now he has had some wins. Of course, Jeff, you remember he won Texas Motor Speedway. He's had some recent victories, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of how Dale Earnhardt Jr. was when he came over to Hendrick Motorsports there. NASCAR's most popular driver in the 88, had all the sponsorship and just wasn't winning races, but kept yielding most popular driver awards. So, I think if you're Chase Elliott, you feel good about going to Martinsville, a place where you ran third a year ago. We know HMS has the speed at Martinsville. We know what that racetrack means to HMS. So, this might be the weekend where you can kind of get this thing dialed in.
And what do you guys think about that penalty that Chase Elliott got coming down pit road? I mean, he wasn't in single file, and this is a penalty that I haven't seen called in a long time. So it's just kind of weird that he was off just a little bit. I think it was because he didn't want to hit someone, but Chase Elliott got a penalty for it, and I think that's one of the things that kind of held him back for this race. Like you mentioned earlier, I think the softer compound on the left side will be a pretty good thing to talk about next week, because I think it will bring some good racing. And like Sky was just saying, it's going to be a lot about pit strategy. So I can't wait for next weekend. But yeah, a lot of interesting things have happened since we've chatted last. I mean, Kyle Busch, this is kind of funny, man. Kyle Busch, for the first time in his life, is going to go head to head with his son. He's 9 years old now, Brexton. I can't believe Brexton's 9 years old. I guess since he's not having a good a season in the Cup Series, maybe he's going to go try to take it out on his kid.
It's pretty funny. He is having a rough time, and see, there's drivers that I have soft spots for, and Kyle Busch is one of them. I'd like to see him do good. It's unfortunate that he hasn't. I seen some people were worried it was going to be a retirement announcement. So I'm glad that it is just him racing with his son. I think that's interesting and it's so fun. I mean, we're getting to the point where probably the next 10 years, we're probably going to see a lot more of this on the NASCAR series level. So just the different drivers and their kids. So that's really exciting, and that's an interesting storyline to go down for sure.
Yeah, it is. And I think you're right. We are going to see a lot of it. I mean, I watched Chase Elliott's dad race. Now I'm watching Chase because I'm old and I've been around the sport for a long time, but it's exciting. I think we're going to see it with Keelan Harvick. He's well on his way to being, a NASCAR Cup Series driver down the road. Brexton Busch. Look, I think it's going to be fun. And Kyle's kind of loosely commented on, I want to be able to run Brexton in a truck one day. So realistically, Jeff, we're talking probably 6-7 years from now before that's a possibility on a short track in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. And that puts Kyle Busch right around that 45 mark, typical retirement age. But, I kind of point the finger back at RCR that they have not been an organization that has contended well in the Chevrolet camp. You look at Austin Dillon, you look at the equipment, it's just not there. And it's unfortunate because it makes Kyle Busch, it makes him look like a shitty driver. And we know that's not the case. I think it's more of an equipment issue, Jeff.
It is kind of interesting to see the RCR camp. Matter of fact, Austin Hill is just signed a contract today to do 5 races in the Cup Series. So RCR will be running 3 cars this year just for those 5 races. And I'm not sure exactly what races are on the schedule at this point, but I'll tell you the one person, you can get into the sport with a name or, being a relative or whatever, but I'll tell you he's going to have a hard time is Ty Gibbs. Out of the last 5 races, he's only had one single top 20. Everything else has been below 20. And that was the season opener at Daytona. So to me, that almost doesn't count. But the 54 team is just, he doesn't have what it has. And, look at what we did with, Ty Dillon. His granddad kicked him out. He had to get a different ride. But so Ty Gibbs has got some issues, and I don't know what he needs to do. I mean, he qualified really well this weekend. He qualified 13th, but he just couldn't bring it home.
Yeah, he's in like the opposite position as Kyle Busch. He has really good equipment and he's just not performing up to that equipment's level. So I definitely agree. I feel he's definitely got to get it together. I do think that, he's not on the hot seat quite yet. It's only his sophomore year or whatever. So I don't think that he's quite like at that level, but he definitely needs to get it together. It's interesting to see that the other drivers that started around the same time as him that have gotten wins and how they're performing in relative to him. So it's pretty interesting for sure.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to turn it around. I mean, we know that Joe Gibbs is one of the best teams. You talk about sponsorships, Denny Hamlin bringing on Progressive Insurance. That's huge after losing a massive sponsor like FedEx. He's good to go for the year. So, I'm sure Denny's feeling good about that. But, you look at Monster Energy and the sponsorship on that 54 car. And if they're not going to show up and represent, I mean, those guys, Coca-Cola Inc. throws a lot of money at that sponsorship. So, sophomore year, Ty really hasn't seen success since he won the Xfinity Series championship. I kind of had him on my drivers to watch list this year as possibly that first time Cup winner. I know it's early. Maybe those guys can iron some things out. But, you look at the teammates around him, Denny Hamlin, Chase Briscoe, and Christopher Bell, and he's going to get left behind.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's only a couple years in, so we'll give him a little bit of time here. But you definitely have to step it up. You're at the professional level now, so either step it up or get the hell out, put him back down into Xfinity, let him run a little bit there. So we'll just have to see is what's going to happen with him down the future. But overall, though, like I said, yeah, it was a really good race. I did hear Fox fucked up, man. I heard that they somehow lost the IndyCar coverage due to a truck or something like that on regular Fox, and then regular Fox had to switch it over to NASCAR because I was watching it on FS1, probably like everyone else was. But they did have to switch it over. I don't even know where it was, but I just heard about that. And they did another little faux pas in the commercials saying that IndyCar is the fastest motor speedway or motorsport that there is on the circuit or in racing. And that ticked off a lot of NHRA guys. I've been hearing a lot of shit talking on social media about, hey, Fox is really messing up. They don't even know what they're talking about. We are the fastest cars. And they're right. Those guys are doing like 330 miles an hour. Kevin, you were up at Vandermeer in Colorado, just last year watching them?
Yeah, I've been around NHRA for a long time. I was watching the Arizona Nationals yesterday. That's how I saw the, HendrickCars.com Pro Stock of Greg Anderson get the win there. But, they're turning on wind lights at over 338 miles an hour. So, by definition, NHRA is the fastest motorsport on earth. So they got to get some of their marketing tightened up there. I did not hear that the IndyCar had failures there. Look, we talked about it last week, Sky. We called out Fox and how they've been kind of dropping the ball here a little bit. And it seems to be getting worse.
I don't even have words. It is just so bad. It's just so mediocre. It's just not what you expect out of something as prestigious as Fox. I did hear about the IndyCar thing. Social media was blowing up about it. A lot of the IndyCar guys were not happy to have to watch NASCAR for a little bit. But something that really surprised me on social media actually was the amount of fans that were complaining about Homestead in general and just how quote unquote boring it was and how there wasn't any passing and just all this stuff. It was to the point where even Jeff Gluck, he was so confused. He was like, "Are we watching the same race?" And I have to agree. Like we were talking about before we started recording it, this was some great racing. Like it made me feel like I was a little kid again in front of the TV with my dad watching it. It just, to me, it was great racing. All in all, I really, really enjoyed Homestead.
I like Homestead. I think it's a great track. I think it's fun to watch. If it's people think it's going to be boring, what are they going to think if they bring, the championship back? That's definitely an option. Probably one of the favorites that people are talking about because I guess people are a little bit tired of Phoenix. I love Phoenix. I know you guys love Phoenix. It's a great track as well. But you're right. Fox needs to kind of get their shit together a little bit. I just don't understand what their issues are between the dropping of the Indy on accident, not having pit stop times. Still pissed off about that. Too much side by side commercials. Fox, I don't know what it is, but we got, I don't know, another 8-10 races with them before we go over to NBC.
Yeah, we'll go to Amazon Prime actually for the Coca-Cola 600. So, they got some time to, I guess, clean it up. But at this point, I think they're just going to limp this thing, to the finish line. But, you mentioned Homestead. The CW covers the Xfinity series. CW, their coverage seems to be getting better. I thought it was a little rough out of the gate. They seem to be hitting on all cylinders. They have pit times over there. If the CW is doing it in the booth next to Fox, there's no reason why these guys can't get it done. But, the fires that were down there that the week leading up to this race, I mean, right on the back straightaway, guys. And so I thought it was really cool that they did a nod to all the first responders and, putting out that wildfire that almost, could have impacted this race weekend. Unfortunately, it didn't. But I think it did impact some of the attendance. Not a great crowd there on Saturday, and we definitely weren't at max capacity on Sunday.
Yeah, I think I had to do a little bit with those fires. I'm pretty sure it did, But like I said, with Sky, overall, it was really good racing. It was cool to see Bubba Wallace get his third place P3 out of it and Chase Briscoe get a P4. So, it's cool for those guys. And again, really unfortunate for Ryan Blaney, but I enjoyed the race. Moving on to next week, we're going to see a lot more trading paint. I think, with more horsepower in the engine, we're going to lower that spoiler just a little bit. And we're going to see a lot more. It's going to be a more aggressive race, I think. The banking, not much banking there. So, I think having those two compounds on the left and the side, like you said, that's going to be going to make it really interesting.
Well, it brings back the short track racing that, we grew up watching in the 90s, and that was the bump and run, using the old chrome horn, giving a guy a bump up the hill, and really have good short track trade and paint type racing, not wreck a guy, not a Hail Melon like we saw Ross do a few years ago. That rule has been 86. You can't wall ride at Martinsville anymore, so you got to have to go earn it. And I think that this short track package is going to be the best that we've seen yet in this next gen car. For sure. I mean, with the tire that we're bringing, the horsepower adjustments, I mean, that's what these drivers have been asking for. And I think that the needle is tipping in the right direction. Some people are probably going to be impatient about it and say it's trash, just like they said about Homestead. The reality is, these keyboard warriors and all these social media folks, I don't think we could give them a product ever that they're going to be satisfied with. Someone's always going to be griping about something.
I 100% agree. They are always upset about something. Either there's too many wrecks, because these are the same people that are complaining, it's a green, white, checkered finish, or NASCAR's throwing this caution, that caution, da da da. It never gets better for them, and I would prefer this. I prefer to let the race just naturally end how it's supposed to happen than fabricate some little old caution or something. But I am so excited for Martinsville. It is by far my favorite track. I've been there the most out of all the other tracks, so one of my favorite spots. Great racing. Hopefully, Ryan Blaney, he's someone to look at this weekend. Hopefully he can get some redemption after if he can make sure his engine stays together this time. I feel like he has a really, really, really good shot at winning this weekend.
I think he's going to run mad fast. I think he's going to do really well. But I did find another thing kind of humorous. There was a pit stop at the end of stage two, and Ryan Blaney had a little bit of an issue pulling out because when Chase Elliott pulled out of his stall, Blaney had to kind of slow down to get into his. And I know they're really good friends off the track, but from what I understand, he gave Chase Elliott the old let's see here, one finger hello as he drove by him, even though their buddies off the track. Racing's racing. These guys are competitors. And Blaney was kind of pissed off at Chase Elliott, but I thought it was hilarious.
It's going to happen. Like we talked about, pit road, for whatever the reason at Homestead can be tricky, and I think we're going to see it carry into Martinsville. Short track, it's not a lot of room. That pit road is pretty narrow, and are we going to see green flag pit stops there? It's really just going to depend on how these cautions fly. We know it's long. We're going to have some stage breaks. Our brake's going to be an issue. Like Sky said, is the 12 car going to be able to hold that motor together? Because look, we go back to the fall race, and that's what punched Blaney into Phoenix, was getting that win. And again, Chase Elliott, your runner up there in the fall race, and he ran third there in the spring race. So we mentioned it earlier. This might be an opportunity to get back on track. So I think Hendrick Motorsports is definitely going to be the threat to put in fantasy this weekend and keep an eye on. Ryan Blaney with Penske, and I think Denny Hamlin. This is a great track for Denny, and he built a little momentum this weekend. I think the 11 car is going to have a strong showing as well.
I was gonna took the words right out of my mouth. I was getting ready to say Denny Hamlin. I mean, him and the 20 car, I have a good feeling this weekend. Christopher Bell, he's had a few weeks off from winning. I think he's ready to get back at it, ready to keep running up his total there. So that's someone I'm gonna look out for. Denny Hamlin for sure. And who do you guys have for maybe like a long shot?
Phew, that one's tough. This is such a hard race to call, other than what we've already said. As far as we know who's going to be in the top five, the top 10 pretty much. But if I'm going to go for a long shot, I don't know, maybe Chris Buescher, Chase Briscoe, maybe. But Briscoe's been running pretty damn well. So those are the kind of guys I'm thinking that might be a long shot as far as numbers go. But as far as your draft picks, I'm definitely throwing Penske drivers and Hendrick in for the most part. Austin Cindric didn't do so well there last year. I think he finished like P21, but I think he's gotten so much better this year. He's going to have a much better finish than he did last year.
I think if I had to go on some long picks, just based on the odds, we just covered who the favorites are. I'm going to go with Bubba Wallace as a great pick this weekend, maybe a garage pick. I think he's shown speed. He's run top 5 at Martinsville. Those guys are headed in the right direction. And I would also put Kyle Busch in there. Kyle knows how to race. These long, keep your equipment for the long haul. I think Kyle's a great pick. Bubba Wallace is my long shots. And then my overall pick to win this race, this is the third week in a row I've picked him, but I'm going Ryan Blaney for it all.
Yeah, it's tough because I was going back and forth with Ryan Blaney too, but I think I'm gonna go with Chase Elliott. He's overdue for one. I think he has a really good shot this weekend. I mean, Hendrick's got the momentum with Kyle Larson winning this weekend, so hopefully the nine can get in victory lane.
Well, if I have to call a winner, I think I'm going to have to go with the person that's in first place. He won there last year. He's first in points right now, and that's the 24 William Byron. I just think he's so strong and he's so hard to beat right now. He only has one win, but I think he's going to get it done this weekend. I just have that feeling. William Byron.
It's a good pick, Jeff, for sure. HMS, we know the dominance. We know the history at that racetrack and how many grandfather clocks old Rick Hendrick has had a chance to have in his organization. So all around, I think those are fantastic picks. We're on to Martinsville. Sky, you mentioned that's the track you visited most. I got to ask you, did you have a chance to slam some of those Martinsville hot dogs?
I have never had a Martinsville hot dog. I know that is so shameful. I'm
What?
so sorry. I'm not a big hot dog eater. They kind of freak me out a little bit. But honestly, I need to. I've decided that next time I get to go, obviously down in Florida now, I'm not anywhere near Virginia, but next time I go, I'm gonna have to get one for
They're
sure.
like $2. They're like $2. Every other track you
That
go
makes
to.
it worse. That's scarier.
Right. I know. Is this a shittier hot dog or not? I mean, when we were in Phoenix, what was that, 2 years ago? Kevin ran out. He's like, man, I'm hungry. I'm going to get some hot dogs. He went and bought three of them. And he's like, dude, these things are like $16 a piece. I'm like,
Ridiculous.
ridiculous.
Whew.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
concessions
I'll
at
pass
Phoenix,
on that.
they're expensive. It was close to $60 for three hot dogs. So that's where Martinsville kind of has the, for the fans and the concessions. I mean, that's what they're known for. And I haven't been to Martinsville. I haven't had boots on the ground there yet, but I want to try one of those dogs. We know that's what they're known for.
And, most of these tracks, you can bring your own beer in. So, as long as it's not glass, you can bring in all your food, all your drinks for most tracks. Vegas doesn't allow it, state law.
Neither does
California doesn't allow it, state law.
Phoenix.
So, Phoenix can't have them there.
NASCAR fans will find a way. That's one thing I'll say about our fan base is that they're some of the most innovative and creative individuals. If you've ever even walked a midway at a racetrack, which Sky, I know you spent a lot of time at, you see some interesting things.
You catch it
So
It's
all at
also the fun
NASCAR.
of
Love
it.
it. That is the fun of it. People watching is half the fun at NASCAR pre-race. You just got to, you're going to see a little bit of everyone. You're going to run into the most redneck guy you could ever see, in his overalls, and that's about it, looking like the guy from Moonshiners. And then you're going to
Mhm.
see, like, Kevin and I were up in the suites in Texas, was that a year or two ago. This guy's completely passed out in suites, and he just had so much money that he flew home that night. His wife, I actually bought a bottle of water for him because this guy was completely wasted. I'm like, here, get this for your husband. And she's like, yeah, I'm bored. I want to go home. So we're flying out tonight. I'm like, oh, you're which airport? She's like, oh no, we just have our own plane. So yeah, you'll meet a little bit of everyone, whether it's the richest of rich or the redneck, as redneck can be. But NASCAR fans are the best fan base you can get. I love it. Going live is the best way to do it.
we've all had the privilege of experience in the NASCAR call. That's why we love it. That's why we're here on Match the Gas, breaking this stuff down every week. So we're on to Martinsville. I think this is going to be another good test. Going back to Phoenix, kind of in that short track world again. And then of course we got a very unique lineup coming. We got Darlington coming down the road. We got Bristol. So this is kind of the fun part of the season. I like the springtime. We had a lot of racetracks that I really enjoy. We got Texas coming up. Jeff, you and I will be there covering that. And so here we go. Now it's on, and now we race. So all three series back at the track this weekend. NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series are there Friday, FS1. That's going to be under the lights, which is going to be great. We got the CW covering the Xfinity Series on Saturday, and then we're finishing off FS1. We'll see if these guys can get it together this week on their Fox coverage. Looks like 3 p.m. Eastern, Jeff.
Yeah, it should be a good race. Like I said, it's always a great track to watch. And I saw something else kind of interesting this afternoon that Noah Gragson has temporarily, lost two of his crew members because he leases. He doesn't actually have his own pit crew in their stable, so they actually get a lot of their pit crew members from Joe Gibbs. And so with Chase Briscoe's penalty, they lost two of their pit crew. And so Joe Gibbs called these guys up from Front Row Motorsports, and Noah Gregson's going to have let's see here. He lost, I can't remember their names, but I think it was Justin Nathan or Nathan McBride. So we'll have to see how Front Row does it. I just don't have faith in Noah Gragson at this track, especially with the team kind of getting jacked up a little bit or losing a jack, man. Poor guys.
Well, and he had a great qualifying showing in Homestead. That four car had a lot of speed in it for sure. Probably didn't get the results they were looking for, but it's a different team now, and you start to add those variables in with the pit crew and all that kind of stuff. I think the four has kind of got an uphill battle coming up this year, but we'll see. There's been a lot of surprises this year. I did not have Josh Berry winning Vegas, so we might see an upset this weekend. And any closing thoughts here, Sky, before we sign off?
No, I am just so excited for Martinsville. I know I said it like a million trillion times, but that's just the love I have for that track. I'm so excited for this weekend, and I do just hope that Ryan's engine stays together.
I hope it does too. I mean, like I said, maybe he's mashing the gas a little too hard. One last stat I wanted to toss out before we do turn the page 100% and sign off. In the last 10 races at Miami, We have had 9 different drivers win, and Kyle Larson's the only one that's won it twice in the last 10 races. Other than that, you got Jimmy Johnson, Truex, Logano, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, William Byron, Christopher Bell, and Tyler Reddick. So it's kind of interesting how Homestead brings out a different winner almost every single race. So just wanted to toss that out before we turn the page.
Once again, that just adds to the point you made earlier about why I think, as we turn the page on Homestead, it's a great racetrack. It belongs in the Cup Series. I'd like to see a little better attendance, but it always puts on a great show, makes for great side-by-side racing, ripping the boards, great passing, and it's a good one for sure. So we're on to Martinsville. We know the importance of this racetrack as we'll be in the playoffs later. The Cookout 400. So this is the 400 lap version. Of course, we do the 500 lap once we get there in the fall. I think I might have said 500 earlier in the program, but this will be a 400 lapper. So a little bit different strategy than we'll see, in the playoffs. Being that you have your equipment only 100 laps less. So you go a little bit harder, and when we get back there in the fall, they're going to have some good notes on this new left side tire. So it should be good stuff this weekend.
And speaking of notes, old Shane SVG, I like to call him Gizzy because they call him Down Under. He had a little note and present given to him before the race in Miami that said, "Welcome to the jockey family, and hope these are your size." And it was signed by Ross and Daniel Suarez. Gave him a nice pair of thongs, and his comments were, "These are pretty." So just a little humor there. I love SVG. Again, great attitude, cool guy. I hope he does well next weekend.
The man from the land down under. I'm excited to see what he can do on a full-time Cup ride as he continues to learn, get better. And he's in great equipment, great teammates for sure. And so we'll see. I mean, I don't necessarily have him as a long shot for Martinsville, but I think a top 20 for him will be a pretty good stint there at Martinsville. So it's time. We're turning the page. Who's going to hoist the grandfather clock this weekend? We'll be back to break it all down next Monday night. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Mash the Gas. Follow NASCAR Sky at NASCAR Sky across the board. And until then, y'all,
Mash the gas.